The Galactic High Court on Zentaris Prime was designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings that stretched 30 meters high, holographic displays showing the assembled representatives of 47 species. And at the center, three humans in military uniforms standing in a containment field that hummed with enough energy to vaporize a tank. Ambassador Velkoth of the hierarchy addressed the assembly, his multiple eye stalks swiveling to ensure maximum dramatic effect. Honored delegates, we are here to address the formal petition from species 7842H, commonly known as humanity, requesting full membership in the galactic community. A ripple of what could only be described as amusement passed through the chamber. Several species made sounds that translated to laughter. The humans, Velkoth continued, barely suppressing his own amusement, claim they deserve recognition as a peer species despite possessing only primitive FTL drives, no energy shields, and weapons technology that relies on chemical propulsion. They have submitted, as is traditional, three of their finest warriors to demonstrate their species' capabilities. He gestured to the three humans in the containment field. These are their champions. Three soldiers from a planet that has yet to colonize beyond its own solar system. The laughter grew louder. Captain Marcus Webb of the United States Marine Corps stood at attention, his jaw tight but his eyes calm. Beside him, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces maintained her composure despite the obvious mockery. On his other side, Sergeant James Okonkwo of the Nigerian Army stared straight ahead, ignoring the jeers. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Threxon, a four-armed warrior from a species that had conquered 20 systems, we should simply deny their petition now, save everyone's time. What could three primitives possibly demonstrate that would impress this assembly? I propose, said Ambassador Quirana of the Sindari, her voice dripping with condescension, we give them the trial of worth. Let them face challenges appropriate to their limited capabilities. When they fail, as they inevitably will, we can deny their petition with proper procedure. Velkoth's expression would have been a smile if his species had lips. An excellent suggestion. Let the trial begin. The containment field deactivated, and the three humans stepped forward onto a platform that rose from the chamber floor. A holographic interface appeared before them, displaying text in English. Trial 1, Intelligence Assessment. Solve the following tactical scenario. The display showed a star system under attack by overwhelming forces. A colony of 10 million civilians needed evacuation, but there were only enough ships for half that number. The attacking fleet would arrive in 6 hours. The question was simple: who do you save? The assembled species leaned forward, curious how the primitive humans would handle this classic dilemma. Most species chose efficiency, save the young and reproductive adults, sacrifice the old and infirm. A few more aggressive species chose to save their warriors first. Captain Webb studied the display for exactly 12 seconds, then tapped a sequence on the interface. We don't choose, he said clearly, his voice carrying through the massive chamber. We buy time. The simulation changed, showing the humans taking 3 of the evacuation ships, retrofitting them with weapons and fuel, and flying them directly at the attacking fleet. The suicide run drew off enough enemy ships to delay the invasion by 4 hours. In that time, the remaining ships made 3 trips instead of 2, evacuating 9 million civilians. Acceptable losses, Webb stated. 300 volunteers traded for 8.7 million additional survivors. Plus, we damaged their fleet enough that local defense forces could clean up the remainder. The chamber fell silent. That wasn't how the test was supposed to work. Trial 2, Physical Capability Assessment. 3 combat drones materialized, standard military units used across a dozen galactic species. Each one was a 2-meter-tall combat platform with shields, plasma weapons, and tactical AI. Defeat the drones using provided weapons. A rack of galactic weapons appeared: plasma rifles, energy blades, concussion grenades. Standard issue for galactic infantry. Lieutenant Tanaka looked at the weapons, then at her fellow soldiers. "Permission to use our own equipment, sir?" Webb nodded. "Granted." The 3 humans reached into their gear and pulled out weapons that made several species in the audience laugh outright. Chemical projectile weapons, primitive kinetic firearms. How quaint. The drones activated, shields glowing as they raised their plasma rifles. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies across the galaxy for the next century. Sergeant Okonkwo threw something small and round. The drone sensors identified it as a primitive explosive device, harmless against shields. They ignored it. The flashbang detonated with brilliant light and concussive sound. The drone sensors, designed to handle energy weapons, weren't calibrated for chemical explosions. For 0.3 seconds, they were blind. In that 0.3 seconds, 3 humans moved with a precision that defied their primitive technology. Tanaka's rifle cracked 3 times, each bullet striking the same point on the first drone's shield. The concentrated kinetic impact, delivered faster than the shield could cycle, created a microscopic breach. Webb's round went through that breach, destroying the drone's central processor. The second drone's shields came back online, but Okonkwo was already moving, his rifle firing in controlled bursts. Not at the drone, but at the chamber's marble floor. Chips of stone ricocheted upward, striking the drone's underside, an unshielded area because what species would attack from below? As the drone's attention turned downward, Tanaka was already there, sliding beneath its firing arc with an energy blade she'd grabbed from the weapons rack. One precise cut through an unshielded joint, and the drone collapsed. The third drone adapted, raising its shield strength and targeting all 3 humans simultaneously. Webb smiled. "Lieutenant, remember Mumbai?" "Yes, sir." They moved in perfect synchronization, a maneuver they'd drilled 1,000 times. Webb and Okonkwo laid down suppressing fire, not to damage, but to make the drone track their positions. As its sensors followed their movement, Tanaka approached from its blind spot, placed a galactic concussion grenade directly against its shield generator, and rolled away. The explosion overloaded the shield from the inside. 3 more rifle shots and the third drone went down. Total elapsed time, 17 seconds. The chamber was completely silent now. Trial 3, Strategic Command Assessment. The simulation that appeared was legendary in galactic military circles. The Battle of Kreshvar Station, where an entire fleet had been lost because there was no possible winning strategy. Every species had tried it. Every species had failed. The scenario was simple: defend a station with limited resources against an enemy with overwhelming numerical superiority, and no compunction about civilian casualties. Every simulation ended in either the station's destruction or the civilian population's extermination. The three humans studied the scenario for 2 minutes, conferring quietly. Then Captain Webb input their strategy. The simulation ran. The defending fleet didn't engage the enemy directly. Instead, they evacuated the station's civilians to the planet below, then turned the station itself into a weapon. They overloaded its reactors, creating a massive explosion that took out a third of the enemy fleet. The remaining defenders used the debris field as cover, picking off enemy ships with precision strikes before retreating to the planet's surface. The enemy tried to pursue, but found themselves facing guerrilla warfare in an urban environment. Cut off from supply lines, facing defenders who knew the terrain, the invasion stalled. Within 3 simulation weeks, the enemy withdrew. "You sacrificed the station," Ambassador Velkoth said, his voice lacking its earlier condescension. "The station was just infrastructure," Webb replied. "It could be rebuilt. The civilians couldn't be replaced. We saved the people and made the enemy pay for the real estate. But you lost the strategic objective. With respect, Ambassador, we redefine the strategic objective. Victory isn't holding territory. Victory is making the enemy regret starting the fight in the first place." Counselor Threxen leaned forward, his warrior's instincts engaged now. "Where did you learn these tactics?" "Earth, sir, we've been practicing on each other for about 10,000 years. The chamber erupted in conversation. Several species were demanding the results be reviewed, claiming the humans must have cheated. Others were analyzing the tactics, clearly impressed despite themselves. Ambassador Quirana raised her hand for silence. "These trials were adequate. However, they prove nothing about humanity's readiness for galactic membership. You've shown tactical competence, but Earth is a single planet with a population of only 9 billion. You have no colonies, no fleet, no." "With respect, Ambassador," Lieutenant Tanaka interrupted, her voice polite but firm, "we didn't come here to prove we're ready to join the galactic community. We came here because we're ready to protect ourselves from it." The chamber went silent again. "Explain," Velkoth demanded. "You think we're primitive," Tanaka continued. "You think we're weak. You think because we use chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons, we're not a threat, but you're making the same mistake everyone makes about humans." "And what's that?" Threxen asked. Sergeant Okonkwo spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. "You assume we fight fair." Captain Webb activated a data chip he'd been carrying. The chamber's displays lit up with information that made every military strategist in the room go pale, or their species equivalent. "This is Earth's actual military inventory," Webb said. "Not the one we reported in our petition, the real one." The displays showed orbital weapons platforms hidden as commercial satellites. Antimatter weapons that violated 6 galactic treaties Earth hadn't signed. Biological and chemical weapons that were banned across civilized space. AI-controlled drone swarms numbering in the millions. And most terrifying of all, relativistic kill vehicles, weapons that could destroy entire planets. "We've been monitoring your broadcasts for 30 years. Webb continued. "We've studied your wars, your tactics, your technologies. We know every species in this chamber could conquer Earth in a straight fight. Your shields, your energy weapons, your FTL drives, all superior to ours. So we didn't prepare for a fair fight." He pulled up a tactical display showing Earth's solar system. We have 6,000 orbital weapons platforms that look like civilian satellites. We have 53 antimatter production facilities on asteroids you think are just mining operations. We have weapon systems hidden on Mars, Europa, Titan, and 17 other bodies in our system. And we have 17 colony ships that launched 30 years ago, heading to systems outside galactic space, carrying everything needed to rebuild human civilization. If anyone attacks Earth, Webb said quietly, they won't just be fighting 3 soldiers or 9 billion humans. They'll be fighting a species that spent its entire history perfecting the art of killing each other and has now redirected that expertise toward external threats. Ambassador Velkoth found his voice. This is... You're threatening the galactic community. No, sir, Webb replied. We're explaining why it's in everyone's best interest to accept our membership petition, because right now we're outside your laws, your treaties, your regulations. We can build any weapon we want, research any technology, take any action we deem necessary for our survival. Lieutenant Tanaka picked up the explanation. But if we're members of the galactic community, we're bound by your rules. We'll dismantle the weapons that violate your treaties. We'll submit to your regulations. We'll be partners instead of a rogue element. You're trying to blackmail us into membership, Counselor Threxen said, though his tone was more impressed than offended. We're offering you a choice, Sergeant Okonkwo said. Accept us as partners, and we'll follow your rules, fight your enemies, and contribute to galactic civilization. Or reject us, and wonder when one of our colony ships settles next to one of your worlds. Wonder what weapons we're building in the dark between stars. Wonder if that asteroid heading toward your homeworld is natural or one of our kinetic kill vehicles. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded the humans be arrested for their threats. Others insisted the petition be denied out of principle. But several of the military commanders present were already doing the calculations, running the scenarios and reaching uncomfortable conclusions. One small planet with primitive technology couldn't conquer the galaxy, but it could make the cost of conquering them catastrophically high. And if left outside galactic oversight, who knew what weapons they might develop? Ambassador Velkoth, despite his earlier mockery, was a consummate politician. He recognized a winning hand when he saw one. Perhaps, he said carefully, we have been too hasty in our assessment. The trials clearly demonstrate humanity's tactical sophistication and strategic thinking. They also demonstrate, added Ambassador Quirana, clearly thinking along similar lines, that humanity would benefit from the guidance and oversight that membership provides. Better to have them bound by our laws than operating independently. The vote, when it came 3 hours later, was 32-15 in favor of humanity's admission to the galactic community. Not because anyone believed Earth was their equal, not because the trials had been particularly impressive, but because every military mind in that chamber recognized the fundamental truth. Humans were dangerous precisely because they were primitive. They hadn't learned the civilized way of warfare. They hadn't developed the cultural restrictions that made galactic conflicts relatively bloodless affairs. They still remembered how to fight dirty, fight mean, and fight to win at any cost. Better to have them inside the tent than outside it. As the three humans left the chamber, now representatives of the newest galactic community member species, several ambassadors approached them quietly. "That inventory you showed us," Counselor Threxen said. "How much of it actually exists?" Captain Webb's expression was unreadable. "Do you really want to know, Counselor?" "Not really," the warrior admitted, "but I'm glad you're on our side now." "We're glad to be here," Webb replied. "Though I should mention we only brought 3 soldiers today. Earth has about 400 million more, and every single one of them learned the same lesson we did." "What lesson is that?" Lieutenant Tanaka smiled. "That there's no such thing as a fair fight. There's only the fight you win and the fight you lose. And humans really, really hate losing." As news of Earth's admission spread through the galaxy, military academies began requesting human tactical advisors. Defense contractors wanted to study human weapons. Governments wanted to understand how a single primitive planet had created such a comprehensive and terrifying defense strategy. But the real lesson took longer to spread, whispered in military bars and strategic planning sessions across 1,000 worlds. 3 soldiers had represented humanity before the Galactic High Court. Just 3. And they'd made the entire galaxy reconsider what primitive actually meant. Because humans might not have the best shields, the fastest ships, or the most powerful weapons. But they had something more dangerous: the willingness to use any tactic, employ any strategy, and pay any price to protect their home. The galaxy had mocked Earth, laughed at its champions, and dismissed its petition. The galaxy wouldn't make that mistake again. Years later, when the first real test came, an invasion from outside galactic space by a species that didn't care about treaties or rules, the galactic community called for volunteers to lead the defense. Captain Marcus Webb, now General Webb, stood before the assembled fleet with his command crew. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted species," he said with a grim smile, "let me teach you how humans fight." The invaders would learn, too late, the lesson the galactic community had learned in that courtroom. Never underestimate a species just because their technology looks primitive. Because sometimes the most dangerous warriors are the ones who never forgot how to be savage. And humanity remembered everything.